Oskar Dirlewanger was a German SS officer and one of the most violent figures in Nazi history. In World War I, he served as a machine gunner on the Western Front. The war deeply affected him, and afterward he was described as mentally unstable, violent, and heavily addicted to drugs. He later joined right-wing militias and fought in internal conflicts against communists. He was expelled from university for anti-Semitic behavior and later convicted of sexually exploiting a minor, losing his military rank, doctorate, and Nazi Party membership. Despite this, he was reinstated into the SS thanks to his personal connection to Heinrich Himmler through fellow Nazi Gottlob Berger. Dirlewanger formed and led a unit initially made up of convicted poachers, violent criminals, and SS rejects, which later became known as the Dirlewanger Brigade, the most feared and lawless SS formation. He commanded this unit across Nazi-occupied territories, where they became known for extreme brutality. In Poland, he ran a labor camp under investigation for widespread abuse, murder, extortion, and sexual violence. SS judge Georg Konrad Morgan, who tried to expose him, was sent to the Eastern Front instead. Dirlewanger's crimes included horrifying abuse of civilians, including forcing his men to commit acts of violence against women and children, using captives as human shields, and massacres disguised as anti-partisan operations. He was known to personally engage in torture and other sadistic behavior. His men followed his example, encouraged to act without limits. Dirlewanger even punished or executed members of his own brigade if they didn't obey. Despite his record, he was praised by Himmler, including during Operation Cottbus, where thousands were eliminated. In Belarus alone, he was responsible for the deaths of over 120,000 people. In 1944, his unit took part in crushing the Warsaw Uprising, where massacres were so extreme that German commanders demanded the unit's withdrawal. Later, he was involved in putting down the Slovak National Uprising, again using brutal tactics. Near the war's end, he and his men were sent to the front lines in Hungary. Wounded, he went into hiding and was captured by French forces in June 1945. Reportedly, he was beaten to death by Polish guards. Irma Grese was a female SS guard at several Nazi concentration camps. Known for her extreme cruelty, she earned nicknames like the Hyena of Auschwitz and the Beast of Belsen. She joined the Bund Deutscher Mädel as a teenager and was proud of its exclusionary racial policies. She began as a nurse's aide at the Hohenlychen Sanatorium, run by high-ranking SS Dr. Karl Gebhardt, whom she admired. In 1942, she started at Ravensbrück, where she trained under Dorothea Binz and witnessed medical abuse on prisoners. This period likely influenced her later sadistic behavior. In 1943, she was transferred to Auschwitz-Birkenau, where she quickly gained a reputation for brutality. She eventually oversaw 30,000 Hungarian prisoners and commanded other female guards. Grese regularly beat inmates with a whip and randomly shot prisoners. She also patrolled the camp with her dog, trained to attack on command. Several prisoners were mauled to death. She also forced inmates to perform exhausting physical drills as punishment and used her position during selections to target those she saw as more attractive than herself. She also chose prisoners for the gas chambers and played a direct role in the deaths of hundreds. Some accounts described her as emotionally detached, taking pleasure in the suffering she caused. She also had affairs with multiple SS officers, including Josef Mengele. Captured by the British in 1945, she stood trial and was sentenced to death by hanging at the age of 22. Her last word was "schnell," urging the executioner to be quick. Nikolaus Barbie, known as the Butcher of Lyon, was a German SS and Gestapo officer active in Nazi-occupied France. Early in life, he considered studying theology, but his path shifted after his father's death. He joined the SS in 1935 and later worked under Adolf Eichmann's department, responsible for deporting Jews, communists, and Freemasons in the Netherlands. In 1942, Barbie was appointed head of the Gestapo in Lyon. There, he gained infamy for torturing prisoners, including women and children, often using brutal physical abuse, electric shocks, and trained dogs. Victims reported beatings, skin being torn, heads forced into buckets of ammonia, and psychological torment. Even some of his fellow Nazis were disturbed by his methods. He was directly involved in the deportation of 14,000 Jews and resistance members. Despite these crimes, after the war, Barbie was recruited by US intelligence for anti-communist expertise. With their help, he escaped to Bolivia, where he is believed to have played a role in the 1980 coup, working with the dictatorship on tactics involving torture and suppression. In 1983, he was extradited to France, where he was sentenced to life in prison, where he died in 1991. Josef Mengele, known as the Angel of Death, was a Nazi SS officer and physician who became notorious for his heinous medical experiments. He joined the Nazi Party in 1937, and after serving as a medical officer on the Eastern Front, he was transferred to Auschwitz in 1943, where he saw an opportunity to conduct experiments under the guise of scientific research. Mengele's sadistic behavior, lack of empathy, and belief in racial superiority made him one of the most feared figures. He was especially obsessed with twins and people with unusual traits. He subjected them to invasive procedures like amputations, deliberate infections with diseases, transfusions between twins, and chemical injections into their eyes. In one case, he reportedly ended the lives of 14 twins at once by injecting chloroform directly into their hearts. Others were dissected so he could compare organs post-mortem or sewn together in attempts to create artificial conjoined twins. He also used drugs and X-rays on healthy people and gave subjects increasingly strong voltages of electricity until they passed away or became unconscious. He fled to Argentina in 1949, and despite being hunted by West German authorities, Israeli agents and Nazi hunters, he was never caught. Mengele died in 1979 after suffering a heart attack while swimming near Bertioga, Brazil. Christian Wirth, called Christian the Cruel, was a brutal SS officer and one of the key architects of the Holocaust in Poland. A member of the Nazi Party since 1923, Wirth was deeply involved in the Nazi T4 euthanasia program, which targeted people with disabilities and resulted in over 300,000 deaths. He helped oversee the development of methods for mass murder, including the use of carbon monoxide gas, and was stationed at the Hartheim killing center as a manager. He intimidated both his subordinates and the guards under his command. Wirth's role expanded dramatically with Operation Reinhard, the codename for the systematic extermination of Polish Jews. As the commander of Belzec, he personally supervised the construction and operation of one of the first extermination camps and oversaw the murder of over 400,000 people. He was notorious for driving victims into gas chambers with a whip. Even other Nazis described him as surpassing all others in ruthlessness, perversion, and sadism. Later, Wirth was put in charge of streamlining the operations at Sobibor, Treblinka, and Belzec camps. He was eventually sent to Italy to carry out further operations before being killed in an ambush by Yugoslav partisans in 1944. Kurt Franz was the deputy commandant of Treblinka under Christian Wirth. Known for patrolling the camp with his Saint Bernard, Franz trained his dog to attack prisoners on command, often mauling them so severely that some were left unrecognizable. Franz routinely carried out selections, executions, and public punishments. He supervised roll calls and ensured that any infraction, escape attempt, or perceived defiance was punished with merciless violence. One of his frequent games involved asking prisoners if they believed in God, giving them a bottle to hold and then deciding whether to shoot the bottle or them. He would also challenge weakened inmates to box fights, often using their heads as punching bags. He also whipped prisoners, sometimes with 50 lashes, without hesitation. Witnesses described Franz as someone for whom not a single day passed without a killing. He was eventually captured and sentenced to life imprisonment, but was released in 1993 due to health reasons. He died in Wuppertal in 1998. Rudolf Höss was directly responsible for the industrialized murder of over 1 million people. Raised in a Catholic family, he lost faith after a priest betrayed his trust during confession and shortly after his father died. Drawn to a militarized life, Höss enlisted young and served in the Ottoman Empire during World War I, fighting in Baghdad and Palestine. After the war, he aligned with far-right paramilitary groups like the Freikorps Rossbach, participating in anti-Polish attacks in Silesia and assaults against the French in the Ruhr. Inspired by Adolf Hitler's rhetoric, he joined the Nazi Party in 1922. Later he joined the SS and was soon transferred into the Death's Head units, responsible for guarding the concentration camps. In 1940, Höss was appointed commandant of Auschwitz. He authorized and implemented systematic mass murder, testing different gassing methods, personally overseeing the optimization of gas chambers and crematoria. In 1944, he was recalled to oversee Operation Höss, a rapid extermination campaign during which approximately 430,000 Hungarian Jews were gassed. As the Third Reich collapsed, he assumed a false identity and fled to Sylt. He was captured by British forces after his wife, Hedwig, was arrested and disclosed his hiding place. Tried in Poland for his crimes, Höss was hanged at Auschwitz. Amon Göth was an Austrian SS officer and the commandant of the Krakow-Plaszow concentration camp in German-occupied Poland. Göth joined the Nazi Party at 17 and entered the Austrian SS in 1930. He was twice arrested by Austrian authorities but escaped prosecution and took refuge at Dachau. After the 1938 Anschluss, he was fully committed to the regime's anti-Semitic agenda, participating in the persecution of Jews during the Kristallnacht pogroms. He later oversaw the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto in 1943, during which thousands were killed or deported to extermination camps. He addressed his new inmates at the Plaszow camp by declaring himself their god. Göth took pleasure in shooting prisoners from his balcony with a rifle and shot a cook who had served soup that was too hot. It's estimated he ordered the execution of up to 12,000 people on the hill known as Hujowa Górka. Göth was universally feared, so much that prisoners would flee to latrines at the mere sight of him. In 1944, Göth was removed from his position for killing useful forced laborers. He was later placed in a Bavarian mental hospital where he was ultimately arrested by US forces. Identified by a former prisoner, he was extradited to Poland where he was hanged. Friedrich Jeckeln was one of the most methodical architects of Nazi mass murder during the Holocaust, responsible for over 100,000 deaths. He joined the Nazi Party in 1929 and was one of the key figures behind the Riseberg murders, in which 25 left-wing activists were executed. Later, Jeckeln was appointed by Himmler as higher SS and police leader in occupied Russia. He personally oversaw the massacres of Babi Yar, Kamyanets-Podilskyi and Rumbula, sites where tens of thousands of civilians were executed in pits. At Rumbula, Jeckeln orchestrated the elimination of 25,000 Jews with a method later known as the Jeckeln system. Victims were forced to line up in columns to the edge of previously dug trenches and lie down on the bodies of those already shot. This method of sardine packing, as he called it, was designed to conserve space, ammunition and time, and was reportedly so gruesome that it disturbed even hardened members of the Einsatzgruppen. He took pride in the effectiveness of his executions and was later awarded the War Merit Cross with swords. Jeckeln was captured by Soviet forces and hanged in 1946. Maria Mandl, an Austrian SS officer, was responsible for the murder of an estimated 500,000 people. Struggling to make a living, Mandl was encouraged by her uncle to take a job as a concentration camp guard. She began her SS career at Lichtenburg. Under the influence of Commandant Max Kögel and Oberaufseherin Johanna Langefeld, Mandl quickly adopted the harsh methods of the camp. She was notorious for beating naked prisoners with a dog whip and hitting prisoners unconscious with her keys. Transferred to Ravensbrück, Mandl became known for targeting women with curly hair, whom she would beat or kick to the ground, sometimes until their death. At Birkenau, Mandl orchestrated death selections, deciding who would live and who would be sent to the gas chambers. When the Third Reich collapsed, Mandl fled into the Bavarian mountains but was arrested by American forces. Her interrogations revealed not remorse, but pride and dedication to her role. She was hanged at the age of 36. Heinrich Himmler was one of the most powerful figures of Nazi Germany and the chief architect of the Holocaust. Himmler joined the Nazi Party in 1923 and took part in the failed beer hall putsch. While searching for a worldview, he began to immerse himself in anti-Semitic propaganda, like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which heavily influenced him. Appointed by Hitler as Reichsführer SS in 1929, Himmler transformed the SS into an effective terror machine. Himmler was instrumental in orchestrating some of the most horrifying policies of the regime. He oversaw the operation of the Einsatzgruppen, mobile killing squads responsible for mass shootings in Eastern Europe, and later the extermination camps that industrialized murder. His vision culminated in the Generalplan Ost, a blueprint for the ethnic cleansing of Eastern Europe. Approved by Hitler in 1942, this plan aimed to exterminate or displace tens of millions of Slavs and Jews to make way for German colonization. This campaign led to the murder of approximately 14 million people. As the Reich crumbled, Himmler secretly tried negotiating with the Allies, earning Hitler's wrath and losing all power. Captured by the British in 1945, he took his life with cyanide. Reinhard Heydrich was one of the most ruthless and intelligent figures in the regime. Adolf Hitler called him the man with the iron heart. Others named him the Butcher of Prague. Born into a musical family, he played the violin before joining the German Navy in 1922 and later the SS. By 1932, Himmler appointed him to lead the Sicherheitsdienst, the party's internal security and intelligence arm. Heydrich played a central role in organizing the 1938 Kristallnacht pogroms, in which Jewish businesses, synagogues and homes were destroyed across Germany and Austria, while thousands of Jews were arrested or killed. He co-designed the Einsatzgruppen, mobile death squads that massacred millions in Eastern Europe, and chaired the 1942 Wannsee Conference, formalizing the Holocaust's final solution to exterminate Jews. After the occupation of Czechoslovakia, Heydrich was appointed Deputy Reich Protector of Bohemia and Moravia. In Prague, he systematically crushed the Czech resistance through executions, deportations and terror. In 1942, Heydrich was ambushed and mortally wounded by Czech and Slovak soldiers trained by the British in Operation Anthropoid. He died from his injuries days later. The Nazi response was swift and horrific. Entire villages such as Lidice and Ležáky were destroyed and many were executed or deported.